Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the BFG Podcast. Today me and Jonathan are here to talk about the women's match against Perth Glory for the Wellington Phoenix. This was played on Sunday.
Yep.
So it's quite good that you're here actually, because I had some particular notes that I wanted to run by you. So first of all, what did you think of the match before I get to those?
I thought it was a match of two halves. I thought the first half was the most terrible display of football I have seen from our team in the year and a half or the season and a half that we've been playing. I've seen college teams, first 11s, that have played better football than what we were playing in that first half on Sunday. And I was ready to give up, but I stuck it out. And I must say that second half performance was absolutely banging. Chloe had some good attempts. Ava had she had a couple of chances to get some one-timers. It was definitely a game of two halves. I don't know what Coach Nick said at the half point time. I don't know if she was like Uffy and went in there and swearing and cursing and told them to pull their heads out or whatever. But whatever she said, it worked because it was a different team that came out to play the second half. So, and in that first half, we had the incident with Rolo, fired off the bat in the Perth player's face. Anyway, we don't need to go into that. It's history. Yeah. Game of two halves. We lost it in the first half. If we had scored at least one in the second half, we could have come out with a draw. We could have fought back, but didn't happen, and we were our own worst enemies in that first half. What did you think?
That was one of the notes that I had for you. Are you surprised that they didn't appeal it?
Appeal what? The red card?
Yes, yeah.
No. Because what happened is when Nick Pennington got his red card, David Dome was saying on social media that basically the way that the A-League match review committee look at it is they go, basically it's the lowest common denominator. What would any other referee do in this instance? And if you think that any other referee would have given a red card, then it stands. They don't overturn them. So it's kind of pointless trying to fight a red card. It's not like the NRL where you can appeal the decision. In the A-League, that's it. If you're red carded, you're pretty much stuffed.
Yeah, I still have a bit of it. We won't go into it too much, but I still have a bit of a problem with consistency, but we won't go there. I don't know whether it deserves a 2-match ban, maybe a 1. But anyway.
Yeah, but if you are playing football and you put your hands anywhere near another player's, basically from the neck up, you are putting yourself at risk. That's it. So that's why the Perth player got 3 weeks. Rolo got 2-match ban, 3-week ban. So just don't do it. I mean, I could talk for hours about that, but I don't think we need to. It's been, yeah.
And the other question I was going to ask around it was, do you think that they should be allowed to, for example, so we would see Rolo in the series against the USA this week, but we won't see an A-League. Do you reckon that they should bring in a rule where it can be used universally, so it doesn't affect your club matches? So, if you just happen to have an international window in the middle, do you reckon you should be able to fulfill your suspension if there happens to be a window within that time?
That's a hard one, because New Zealand football at the moment is, and as we saw yesterday, we got thumped 4-0 by the US. So we're not in a position to not have good players playing. If it was any other sport, or we were a more competitive team, I would say that yes, that would apply. That match ban should have applied to yesterday and Saturday, and that Rolo should have sat out those 2 games and then would come back into the Phoenix. after the thing. But that's not how it works. It's a tricky one. I don't think there's a clear-cut position you can take on that.
Inside years of a coach, but if this was a league, you would
Union, NRL, basketball, anything like that, yeah.
You would potentially have the opportunity to serve it in other games as well, not just your club games. So it'd be nice to see that brought into football, but who knows?
Yeah,
yeah. And nice plug, Jonathan. We'll have an in-depth match review of that the USA game coming up on the channel soon. But anyway, back to the match. On
that, Blake, I think it would be it's a real hard one, because why should a player who's playing it's kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, Rolo obviously plays for the Ferns. She's and she's in there and she's trying to do a thing. Should she be penalised and not being able to get a cap for the Ferns for something that happened in an A-League game? I don't know. My thing is, I don't think Rolo should have been picked for the Ferns anyway, based on how she's been playing for the Knicks. And I actually thought Mickey Robertson should have been in there well before Rolo was, because Rolo's been she has not been that great for the Knicks. She's been a bit average. I mean, let's call it. She's been a little bit average. Mickey Robertson has been absolutely on fire. But each to their own, Yitka's got a long-term plan. Rolo's part of that. So she's the coach. I'm not. So we roll with it. That's cool. It's good. That's football. Sorry, what were you going to say, Blake, before I went on my little tangent?
So it was a really good for. We have to give Perth the credit where credit due. They perform really well. Some of their players are really quality.
Perth are a good side.
As I said to you on the in our chat room that we used to set up this podcast, I reckon it would be. I know we need to grow the game here, but it'd be really nice to be allowed at least one, maybe even not as many as the Australian teams, but at least one or two overseas imports would be nice.
Yep, totally agree. There's some teams with 5 Americans, there's some with 2 Americans, someone from England and someone from Europe. There's Asian, Filipino players, and I totally agree. I think it would be fantastic to have an import come in, because it just raises the bar so much higher, and it shows the other team members what the work ethic they need to be operating at.
Like that first goal or the second, I think it was the first, by an American player, and I can't remember her name. She was so good for right outside the box and just whacked it into the goal.
Yeah, Bree got a little bit caught out by that. And that was a really good goal. I mean, you're absolutely right. Some of these imports are performing and they're doing fantastic. You got to look at Hannah Keane, who's playing for Western United. She's having an absolute belter of a season. There's just so many players across all the other teams you could go on about, and we need. I would love to have if we could to get someone like that.
I get that, and this will be the last point I'll make on this, but I get the point that they're trying to bring home like Alia Wright, a Wilkinson or a Bowen, but that's fine to have the Ferns coming home and in and out. That's a cool idea, but it needs to be some of these Premier League or whatever, Super League, I think it is, the one Super League, or the Bundesliga, or whatever the French league is called. some of these players need to have the chance to play in New Zealand too. You know, because the Americans like coming here, the Europeans like coming here. There's a lot of World Cup teams that are looking forward to coming to the World Cup. So it's not like no one want to come. So I hope there's not the perception that they're not letting us do it because they're afraid they don't want to come, because I've seen a lot of players that are interested in coming to New Zealand just for the World Cup alone. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a few different things we can say to that. Number one is, if you're a big, outstanding international player, are you going to go and join the wooden spoon team in the league 2 years in a row? You're going to play for the worst team in the league. Secondly, the Phoenix are on a tight budget. You can't dispute that. It's a well-known fact. So can we afford to bring in someone? Can the Knicks afford to pay someone of that quality what they're worth? So there's another, so those are kind of the two things. The third thing I'd say, and I'm a little bit hesitant now, having seen how well our Ferns have gone this season, and I would think actually if we're bringing people home and they're Ferns and they're so-called quality players, I don't think we've seen the output that the Ferns should be bringing. Senior players, Hatzit, and Rolo, Satchel's in there, but Satchel's actually, her workload is incredible, both for the Knicks and the Ferns. But when that Ferns quality senior player is not translating into performance for the Knicks, so is bringing another senior player back who's a quality Kiwi player into the Knicks squad going to make any difference? It's not this season.
I don't know. It's hard to say till they arrive.
Personally, I would love to see, and I've been saying this for ages, I would love to see, and Helena would our good friend Helena, friend of the podcast, would agree, we need players with technical skills, players who pass to feet, who can run and dribble and really control the ball and control the game, because that's what we're missing across the park. We're missing some of those fundamental skills, that simple stuff. And I think if we could get an international player, and we saw in the Korean series how they played when they came not long ago, that's the kind of player I think we would do well with. We don't need flash. We need someone with real deep technical skill.
A couple more points on the Phoenix game. The Bree played really well again. She was another star performance for her.
Yep. Full kudos to Bree. I saw her yesterday after the game, had a quick chat with her, and I just said, look, she's just having the most. Every week she gets better and better, and she so rightly deserved to be in that Ferns squad at the moment.
And again, we will have a full recap of that game on the channel soon. Again,
so a couple more things from me just before we move on. Mickey Foster had an absolute blinder on the weekend. Well, it wasn't an absolute blinder, but I thought she was one of the better players for our team. I don't know why she's been held back at left back. I think I would love to see her move up the field more and put some of that firepower and speed maybe across the midfield or up the front. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Don't know. That was it. Mickey Foster. Oh, Ava Pritchard had an absolute basher in that second half. She was fantastic. She had a couple of one-timers that were just clean, but didn't go in. But Ava really stepped up. So that's why we gave her Cheerleader Tuesday this week.
Yeah, and she's a good player.
She is. Her and Millie Clegg are quite a dynamic pairing, but they need a stronger midfield to be pushing through and allowing and giving them quality ball that they can put shots on.
Millie Clegg has surprised me. She's, as an amateur contract, she settled into the team a lot better than I thought she would.
Yeah.
She's like the surprise package of the season for me.
Yeah, well, Millie played really well at the under-20s and the under-17s. She's a natural leader. She leads by example. and she's fantastic. She's fast. She's quick. She works her backside off. And
for someone, for someone so young, she's so mature beyond her years.
She'll be a silver fern. She'll be potentially could be a football ferns captain one day, in a striker position. I could absolutely see her playing up the front there. Like she's coming through.
Yeah, and we said this last week with the ladies. Do you think the more and more time that they spend away, the more and more free is locking in that first team spot permanently, and Queen Lily will struggle to get her spot back? Or do you reckon it's always been about keeping it warm?
Well, we had a chat with Lily yesterday, and I think it's fair to say that Bree's got that spot for a little while longer, and Lily would have to work she'd have to work exceptionally hard to get it back before the end of the season. I think, yeah.
Do we see her in a Phoenix shirt again? Just a yes or no answer.
Yes. The question is when. And there's no clear answer to that.
Well, we'll leave it on that cliffhanger, I think.
Cheers to that, mate.
So, anything else you've forgotten?
No, mate. Because the game was on the weekend and it was so long ago, and we went and watched the Ferns yesterday. That, like, my brain's a bit cloudy from what happened in that game on the weekend. But I think we've covered off all the key points. Only thing is, yeah.
Sorry, go again. Sorry.
No, that's what I was just going to say. I am. No, we'll leave it there. I could keep going for ages, but we'll leave it there. There's nothing. Yeah.
Okay, we'll be back with the USA Ferns game 1 review in the next video. So we'll see you for that video then. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video, and we'll see you for the next review.
Cheers.